a woman's body had been found in a drainage ditch. It soon became clear that this was sinister.
There was a ligature around the neck. This is homicidal strangulation.
There was real fear. Women were having to look over their shoulder at night. Anyone in Porthmadog at that time could have been the killer.
It could be one person, or it could have been more than one.
And they suddenly announced that they had arrested a man, and soon came the dramatic development. It was someone within the community.
But the witness might have been mistaken in the identification of the person responsible. A lot of people believed that he was innocent.
Was there a serial killer on the loose in Porthmadog?
Nestled on the picturesque Glaslyn estuary in North Wales is the charming harbour town of Porthmadog.
Porthmadog is a coastal town. It had been in the 19th and 20th centuries a working port where slate from the North Wales slate mines were ferried to Porthmadog and from Porthmadog all over the world. It was famous for that.
Porthmadog has a population of about 5,000 people. It's a little Welsh town. It's the Welsh-speaking heartland of North Wales.
It's a lovely part of the world. It thrives on primarily tourism. It has a very close community where most people know everybody else. The majority of people that live in Porthmadog live there all their lives and don't move away.
Some people would still keep their front door unlocked. People were trusted, and it was the last place that you would expect such a dreadful event to happen.
It was one of my days off, visiting Liverpool, and it was in the afternoon that my phone rang. It was the control room inspector to tell me that a body had been found in Porthmadog and that units were at the scene and they believed that it was suspicious. Unfortunately, this was my worst nightmare regarding location because I was at least 3 hours drive away. But I was made aware that the helicopter was going to be in the area, and it was arranged that I drove to Prestatyn and jumped on the helicopter, which conveyed me to the scene.
The body of a woman has been found face down in a drainage ditch, known locally as the Cut.
The person had been walking along, seen the body in the water and raised the alarm. I was not informed of who she was, because it was unclear at that time. All we know is that it was a young lady.
This cut, it's essentially a water-filled deep drainage ditch which has a certain degree of tidal current in it, washing in and out.
The location of the woman's body means that it is a race against time for the forensic team.
Your first concern with a body in these kind of circumstances is how much of the forensics is going to be lost.
If you've got a scene where there's running water, then you need to work expeditiously. There's a real kind of urgency to remove her body and take her body away from that water body so that we can recover evidence before it's been washed away.
The body was a crime scene, so you need the body out of there as fast as possible.
The crime scene manager, she informed me that a doctor had already been out and had pronounced the victim dead. And on turning over the body that was still in the water at that time, they'd found that a scarf was placed around her neck and that the end of the scarf had been forced down into her mouth.
Once the pathologist was able to inspect the body and see that there were features that were not in keeping with an accidental death, then that triggered a completely different track for the investigation. We're now in a possible murder situation.
This is homicidal strangulation. I mean, she wasn't suspended from anything. It wasn't self-suspension. There were injuries to the body, bruises. So it was quite clearly a homicide.
Also, that there was part of her clothing was disturbed, which it led us to believe that there was a sexual side of this attack. Identifying who the victim is naturally a priority because we need to inform the relatives. We didn't know at that time whether the person was a local or someone there on a holiday. It was my suspicion, bearing in mind the location, and it was close to local housing, that it was unlikely to be a sort of tourist. It wasn't the tourist part of town, but we didn't know.
As police and CSI descend on the small seaside town, locals are becoming increasingly alarmed.
Word soon gets around. It really did shock the community. Something of this magnitude hadn't happened to a local girl that I can remember. And then obviously the police activity in the area became obvious to the locals, and this huge inquiry started.
I was informed that a brother had come to the cordon and raised the alarm that his sister was missing.
The young man who is concerned for his sister lives nearby.
Well, once her brother had come to the cordon and said that his sister was missing and gave a description of his sister, which effectively matched the young lady that we'd found, officers dispatched to the house and questioned the family more in depth regarding identifying marks, tattoos, clothing, the general description of her. The information from the family is that their daughter had a tattoo, and when the body was examined, we found that tattoo on the body. The formal identification would come later, but we were as sure as you could be that we knew who it was.
The body is confirmed to be that of 22-year-old Fionn Wynne Roberts.
Fionn was a care worker. She also had another part-time job at the football club. She was a popular member of the community, kind, loving, she was described as. She had ambitions to join the army as a nurse.
And she lived in Porthmadog all her life. She was just a regular young lady. This is an open book at this stage. We wanted to know who she had been with that night. Had she travelled home alone? So the inquiries were in the locations that she'd been and the people that she'd been in with. Who was the last person that was seen with her, or we believed to be with her? So at this point, we're totally blind. We've only just found the body, we've only just found the family, so we had no information whether she'd been with anybody that evening, and we have to backtrack, in the first instance, at least 24 hours.
Just a few hours before her body was discovered, Fionn had been enjoying a night at the pub with her parents.
On the evening before, she'd been out celebrating with the family, and on a Saturday evening, had been doing what most young people do, socialising with friends in the town.
Fionn's father is the first to go home, leaving Fionn and her mum drinking at a pub in nearby Tremadog. At around 2 a.m, Fionn's mum returns home, and then 2 hours later, Fionn decides to make the short walk home alone.
At that time, in Porthmadog, I would hasten to say that the vast majority of people, if not all the people, felt extremely safe at walking around at night. And it was not unusual for young ladies to walk home and feel safe. And Fionn obviously felt safe enough to walk home on her own. Others had offered to go home with her, and she had decided no, she was safe enough, and she left for the journey home herself. So I think she was going home, not having any worries at all, because at that stage, I don't think people did in that small rural town.
This was the last time Fionn Wynne Roberts would be seen alive. In the town of Porthmadog in North Wales, police are investigating the murder of local woman Fionn Wynne Roberts.
In a small community like that, it is a major, major shock. From people who felt remarkably safe going about their day-to-day business, suddenly a horrendous crime like this has been committed in their local town.
Fionn's body has been found in a drainage ditch in a residential area.
Where the body was found was within a couple of 100 yards at the very most from her home address. She was nearly home.
It appears that Fionn has been strangled with her own scarf, and as pathologists examine the body, further alarming details start to emerge.
It's quite obvious this is homicidal ligature strangulation. The scarf was particularly tight around the neck with the knot on one side, and then from the knot, it was the rest of the scarf that had been pushed into her mouth and throat. It may have been done by the assailant to stop her screaming or crying out. And she had all the changes associated with that. So, for example, she had obvious petechial hemorrhages, pinpoint-sized, tiny red hemorrhages. In the skin of the face, so you've got two components. You've got the compression effect around the neck of the ligature itself and the airway obstruction, both combining to cause asphyxiation.
As the post-mortem continues, it reveals the horrifying details of Fionn's last moments.
She was still alive when she went into that water. Now, she may well have been unconscious and dying from the ligature strangulation, but she was still breathing. There were breaths. You only have to inhale a few times or suck water into your lungs. My lungs were hyper-expanded, full of fluid. Cause of death was a combination of ligature strangulation and drowning.
Fionn had suffered a swift but brutal attack.
Fionn had injuries to the lips. There were bruises and laceration. Some of those may have been caused by direct punches to the lips. She also had bruises to her face, bruising to an eye. So she had definitely been struck by her assailant.
So unexpected was the attack that it seems Fionn did not have the chance to fight back.
So as a forensic pathologist, we'd always be looking for any injuries which suggest that the victim has fought off her attacker. Usually they'd be to the arms if someone is being attacked with a weapon, for example. In Fionn's case, there were no defensive injuries. Lack of defensive injuries suggests that maybe she was incapacitated very quickly, taken by surprise. So did Fionn suffer? I think it was probably extremely quick, so she probably didn't know much about it.
As the days pass, pressure is mounting on Detective Superintendent Challoner and his team.
You've got to look at it with clear eyes, because the objective is to find the truth and to find the offender. Everybody that came into contact with Fionn for 24 hours, everybody in the pub, everybody that was out and about that night, and all those people are interviewed. So you're talking about hundreds of statements being taken. What we're trying to do is to identify everybody's movements at the relevant times in Porthmadog, because one or more of them was the offender.
Anyone in Porthmadog at that time could have been the killer.
It could be one person or it could have been more than one. We knew that a handbag was missing. So I am deciding on what is the priority about searching and expanding that search area, especially as this is a water flow and evidence may have moved down that.
And then there is a breakthrough.
That handbag was found by one of the search teams, but what I would describe as a sluice gates, which stops the estuary water coming in and flooding all these waterways. And what had been discovered there was a handbag and items of clothes. There was a set of trousers and there was a training shoe found. It is our belief that the offender had discarded them, hoping that the water in the estuary had washed them out and they'd never been recovered. But the person's aim hadn't been good and they'd been caught on the top of the gate and remained there.
Now all they had to do was find who wore them that night, who owned them. The police, they spoke to nearly 5,000 people in the area. They issued leaflets, they made appeals. They wanted to know who owned these items of clothing and the shoe.
But the police appeals for information regarding the owner of the clothes do not prove fruitful, so all hope lies with forensics.
So the process of examining the tracksuit bottoms is that we lay them flat onto an examination bench, and then we start to methodically recover any evidence that might be present. So that might include any body fluids, any DNA, and we're also looking on the surface for things like hairs and fibres. And in this particular case, that process recovered dog hairs from the clothing. So it's likely the owner of these tracksuit bottoms owns a dog. If we can recover DNA from it, and we then identify a dog that we think that hair might have originated from, we can take a small mouth swab from that dog, recover its reference DNA profile, and compare it to the hair that we recovered from the tracksuit bottoms.
And then the investigation turns in a direction that stuns the community in Porthmadog.
So often the answer to who murdered someone lies close to home.
Phone inquiries reveal Fion's brother had rung her 19 times in a short period of time on the night of her murder. Something which raised concerns due to their relationship.
There was much more than ordinary sibling rivalry between Fion and her brother. There were long periods of time when they didn't get on.
On the night in question, her brother was drinking with friends in a car park. And police also focused on the whereabouts of Fion's father.
He had no alibi because he'd been to the same party as his wife and daughter, but had left early. So he left a pub called the Sportsman's at about 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was home by about 1:30, and so was a suspect in the sense that he had no alibi for the crucial few hours.
Less than a month after Fion's body had been found, her father and brother are arrested on suspicion of her murder.
And I made an appropriate decision to have them arrested so that they could be interviewed formally under caution.
Police in North Wales are investigating the homicide of 22-year-old Fion Wynne Roberts. Items that detectives believe belong to the killer have been found, and Fion's brother and father remain in custody, arrested on suspicion of her murder.
It must have set tongues wagging in a small community. It must have been very difficult to live in Porthmadog at that time, knowing that questions were being asked. Were you responsible for what happened to Fion?
But just days before Fion's funeral, having been interviewed at length by police, both are suddenly released.
The clothing, the trousers and the training shoe And Fion's bag, the forensic analysis and the DNA recovered from that did not match her brother or her father.
The police got back their DNA results. It wasn't Fion's brother. It wasn't Fion's father. It was someone else. It felt as though it was back to square one. There was pressure on the police to solve this crime. Their counsellor was even calling for a new investigation team at one stage. So there was real pressure to solve a seemingly random killing in a small town. There was real fear in the community. Women were having to look over their shoulder at night. They were being advised to not walk alone. Was there a serial killer on the loose? Was there a serial attacker on the loose? This was, a cause of major local concern.
Both locals and police are highly aware that a killer is still at large, and Detective Superintendent Peter Challoner has his own fears.
An offender goes on to offend again, and it is always a risk that if they get away with one crime, they'll commit another.
Desperate for the investigation to move forward, the police need help from the public.
We were still focused on finding out the person whose DNA we had found on those clothes. We were able to offer a reward of £10,000 for information leading to the offender. A local businessman had offered to pay half the reward.
1 month after her death, Fion's funeral is held at Capel Salem, Porthmadog.
500 people turned up at her funeral. Shops closed. There was support for her family, her devastated family in this hour of need and grief.
As Fion's community grieve her loss, the investigation into her murder continues.
We weren't getting a lot of success from our appeals. We weren't getting closer to the individual responsible. And one of the aspects of an inquiry like this is that we try to make best use of the media.
There's a need to keep the public interest in what had happened in Porthmadog to try and catch the killer. TV, press, radio, newspapers came down. This was everyone's worst nightmare, and the killer was still at large somewhere. And the police felt that the answer lay in the local community, that they would find the killer somewhere in the Porthmadog area.
And because of that broadcast, there was a woman in South Wales contacted the major investigation team and told us that 20 years previously, when she was in Porthmadog, there was a similar attack in the same area.
The attack 2 decades earlier had happened just yards from the location that Fion's handbag had been found.
The young lady had left her place of work and saw a man apparently molesting a woman, and she shouted to him and he ran away.
Quite an astonishing development in the case. This woman had come across another woman in broad daylight who was crying and seemingly about to be attacked with a stone. This was a key evidence for the police. The eyewitness knew this local man. She named him. Checking back through their records, police are able to see that a court case had been held in the local magistrate's court for assault. A man had been fined, ordered to pay compensation.
The man connected to the attack in Porthmadog 20 years previously is 55-year-old local factory worker Iestyn Davies.
Once the name came in, together with the history of what he was alleged to have done 20 years previously, that was a very similar set of circumstances to the attack on Fionn, and plus it was in the same location. So immediately he became a person of interest. A plan was put together to arrest him and to retrieve his DNA.
11 weeks after the discovery of her body, Iestyn Davies is arrested on suspicion of the murder of Fionn Wynne Roberts.
For the family, this must have been a relief, for the finger was at last not being pointed in their direction.
News of the arrest sends shockwaves through the tiny Welsh town.
You might have expected whoever was responsible to have been a stranger who was visiting this small town in Gwynedd. Not Iestyn Davies, a man who was brought up in the area. He lived nearby. He was hiding in plain sight.
He lived certainly all of his adult life in that community, and he was very well known. And there were people who, for example, had played games with him, either darts or football. At the time, he was working at a wood factory, and that was local to the area, very close to where things happened.
Iestyn Davies lived near the family. He knew Fionn, and it came as a real shock to the community that someone within Porthmadog could be accused of such a grave act, such an awful, dreadful killing.
He was arrested, his DNA was taken, a police rider was on hand to escort that forensic example of his DNA to the lab. They did an examination and reported back that we had a match. The match of that DNA was from the sample inside Fionn's bag.
So once that DNA was recovered from the handbag, it generated a match to Iestyn Davies's DNA profile. And the way that we convey that match was that it's a 1 in a billion. So what that means is it's 1 billion times more likely that the DNA originated from Iestyn Davies than it did an unrelated individual. And so the opinion was given that the DNA was transferred as a result of him having handled that handbag.
The case was starting to come together.
When I had identified Davies, we found out that he had a dog. So when he was arrested, there was a hair sample taken from his dog, which again went to the lab. We had recovered dog hairs from Fiona on her clothes, and we were able to do a DNA match, and that brought us back about a 2% accuracy that the dog hairs were attributed to his dog, and again we had a match.
Iestyn Davies is charged with the murder of Fionn Wynne Roberts. But Detective Superintendent Challoner knows that there is one major flaw in his evidence.
The defence will make great play that the police haven't brought forward an eyewitness. Well, there isn't one. That's a fact of life. You can't manufacture an eyewitness. If no one was there, you don't have one. But of course, the defence will highlight the point that no one was there, no one's seen it.
The police inquiries relied more on technology and science than they did on looking for witnesses. There was a suspicion in Porthmadog that the killer was not Iestyn Davies. He was known to the community and not generally known to have a violent disposition, and so a lot of people believed that he was innocent.
And for people in Porthmadog, there was still a sense of fear. Had the police got the right man?
Nearly 12 months after the body of Fionn Wynne Roberts was found in a drainage ditch, the man accused of her murder, Iestyn Davies, is to stand trial.
the vast courtrooms. There was a tense atmosphere. This was a real human tragedy, a young woman with a whole life ahead of her that was cut so short. And throughout the trial, Iestyn Davies was pointing the finger at Fion's brother.
Iestyn Davies wasn't an immediate suspect, and he wasn't arrested for some time. We raised the suspicion that her brother was a suspect, had been a suspect, and our view, as we put it, was that he was still a suspect.
Despite their early arrests, the prosecution maintained that Fion's brother and father played no part in Fion's murder.
They were released after those interviews, and in the fullness of the inquiry, we eliminated them as responsible in any way. They were purely victims, and they had no responsibility for their sister and daughter's death.
The prosecution puts to Iestyn Davies evidence that links him to the tracksuit bottoms and trainer, items they believe belonged to the killer.
Prosecution case was based very much on there being this important evidence of the tracksuit bottoms, and they'd been found in a sluice gate near to Fion's handbag and near to a muddy trainer. And the mud, the prosecution said, was from when her body had been put in the ditch. And there was also DNA evidence.
The discovery of Iestyn's DNA on the discarded clothing is compelling, but the defense are able to offer an explanation.
The tracksuit bottoms were accepted by Iestyn Davies to have been his. He gave an account of having washed them at work and hung them up on a fence, and they had disappeared. Now, there's a logic in that, because where they were found was quite close to where he said he'd hung them up to dry, and so that was credible.
However, it is revealed that Iestyn Davies' DNA was also found on Fion's clothes.
He gave as an explanation for that he had seen her on the Friday night at the station public house, and that he'd given her a hug.
So if an individual gives an account in which they have been in legitimate contact with someone before the attack, we have to consider what is the chances, or what is our expectation of DNA transferring in that setting. And obviously, if I hug someone, my DNA could transfer.
The prosecution are quick to offer their rebuttal.
2 witnesses were called to say that we've known Iestyn for many years, and we don't think he's a hugging sort of person, and that he didn't know Fion well enough that he would have spontaneously hugged her on seeing her.
The defense know that the eyewitness evidence from the historic assault in Porthmadog may be harder to explain away.
The difficulty that we had with the evidence of the previous incident is that the person said that the attacker had held a rock in his hand, and the body of Fionn Roberts was found to have had a head injury consistent with having been hit with a blunt object, and that could have been a rock. So that would then become, in the prosecution's perspective, a weapon of choice.
Nonetheless, Iestyn's defense team raise a simple concern that casts a shadow of doubt over the eyewitness testimony.
The witness might have been mistaken in the identification of the person responsible.
The prosecution reveal their most damning evidence so far when they present to the jury CCTV of Iestyn Davies on the morning of Fion's murder. He appears to be wearing the tracksuit bottoms the police believe were worn by the killer.
It was a matter of capturing him on CCTV, capturing his movements to the scene where we believe that she was killed at the relevant time to where the attack happened on Fion. and at that time he had with him his dog. We then capture him going back to the premises he was staying at. He changes clothes, and then he's captured going in the direction of the sluice gates. He then, after a short period of time, goes back to the premises where he's staying. What's most significant is in the first part of that journey, where we believe he attacked Fionn, he is wearing the Adidas tracksuit bottoms with the stripes down the side, and when he goes back to his home and then he leaves, he is in a different set of clothing. So we believe he committed the crime, he went home, he changed and took all his clothing and his shoes, went down to the sluice gate and tried to discard them.
The CCTV evidence places Iestyn Davies in the vicinity of Fionn's murder around the time she is believed to have died. But Davies claims this walk in the early hours is far from unusual.
He gave explanations for that, which were very early in the morning. He had a dog, Meg, who didn't let him sleep in, and the dog woke him early, and he went out walking the dog. The police asked him about the change of clothes, and he readily acknowledged that he had changed, but said that was often his habit. He'd go out for a very early morning walk in whatever was first to hand when he got up, but then he changed into what would be day clothes later on.
In the dock, Iestyn Davies seems unfazed by proceedings.
He was full of himself in there. He was an expressionist, cocky.
He was cool, he was calm. This was a man who wasn't buckling under the pressure of intense questioning. Iestyn Davies was almost laughing at the law. There was a telling moment when he said, "I'm enjoying this." This was during his cross-examination, which was quite shocking to those in the courtroom at the time. And don't forget, we were talking about the most horrendous murder of a young woman. It painted a chilling or sinister outline of the true character of the man. A man who seemed unfazed by what he was being accused of. He was so devious. He was a man who hadn't panicked, who smirked while being questioned about a murder of a young woman.
But the prosecution have evidence that they believe will wipe the smile from Iestyn Davies' face.
There was DNA found in the knot of Fionn's scarf, which was used to strangle her and gag her.
And because the DNA was inside the knot, it suggests that it belongs to the person who tied the ligature.
You have to remember that this person was found in a water body, so that there's a risk that it's going to remove some evidence. But the fact that we've got this knotted part of the scarf means that it would have been protected. It's a forensic goldmine. So DNA is this kind of silent witness.
And the DNA is a match to Iestyn Davies.
All this evidence was pointing towards Iestyn Davies. The story of her brother being the real killer, it all seemed to be becoming something of a red herring. He wasn't the clever killer that he perhaps thought he was. He was concocting lies, and his story was starting to fall apart under scrutiny.
After 6 weeks of evidence, the jury retired to consider their verdict.
We had no expectation of a result going one way or the other. There might have been a conviction, there might have been an acquittal. I stopped looking in the crystal ball many years ago. We have no idea which way a jury is going to go, and every time is a mystery.
Tensions in court are running high when, after several days of deliberation, the jury are unable to agree on a verdict.
The judge brought them back in, and they said they couldn't unanimously come to a verdict, and he gave them the option of a majority verdict.
The jury had been out for some days, and I think for many of us, we were reaching the stage, is this going to be a retrial?
Now, once they'd been given that opportunity to bring back a majority verdict, it wasn't so long after that that they actually returned.
By a majority verdict of 10-2, Iestyn Davies is found guilty of the murder of Fionn Wynne Roberts.
And sentence was the only one to be expected. That was life imprisonment with a recommendation of 25 years. That means that the defendant cannot even be considered for parole until he's been in custody for 25 years.
He probably thought all that evidence was going to be washed away in the Irish Sea, never to be found by the police. But thankfully, justice prevailed.
Iestyn Davies was remarkably stoical about it. There were no tantrums, no outbursts. He knew that he was possibly going to be convicted, and that possibility turned into a reality.
My theory is that Fionn had come face to face with Davies. He started making advances, and when she rejected those advances, he committed the act that he did.
The sentence comes as a huge relief to Fionn's family and the community of Porthmadog.
They were a well-known family and a respected family. They were liked and admired because they were all hard-working people. And the community felt very strongly that they'd suffered a great loss.
In a final cruel twist, it transpires that Iestyn Davies had visited the family home just days after he had killed Fionn.
And it really did add to the agony of the Roberts family. They'd lost their daughter in these most terrible circumstances. And then have the killer turn up at their home, comforting them. This was a truly grotesque thing for anyone to do.
For Fionn's family, friends and neighbours in Porthmadog, the loss of one of their own continues to cut deep.
It caused huge upset. It was going to take time for the people to get over what had happened to this well-liked girl.
The following programme contains descriptions of real-life violence that some viewers may find distressing. Please be aware that this programme also contains themes of domestic violence.
When a murder happens, it's very rare and it sends real shockwaves through the community.
It was like something out of a film that you would never see in your local street. What kind of person would actually do that?
The way in which she was disposed of is just utterly disgusting. The investigation had to be her voice. She wasn't there to say what happened to her.
It was quite clear the complete devastation that had been caused by the death of their daughter.
He's a manipulator. He's just a cold-hearted killer.
Just 16 miles south of Birmingham, but nestled in the rolling hills of Worcestershire, lies Bromsgrove.
Bromsgrove is a peaceful place and it's very tranquil.
Not much here. Not much really happens.
There's quite a village feel to it because it's surrounded by countryside and it's got country pubs, it's got a nice canal.
It's got a lovely community. They're all very friendly.
They know their neighbours and help each other out.
I've left several times I always end up coming back home. It's where your heart is, really.
In the beating heart of Bromsgrove live the Salangis.
Nizam and Zubaydah lived in Talbot Road in Bromsgrove. Nice estate. And it has a row of shops, and in that row of shops was Nizam and Zubaydah's takeaway pizza business, Prego Pizza. It was owned by Nizam. Zubaydah would help and serve behind the counter.
And it was plainly quite a popular place for local residents to go to.
I don't know what they did with them pizzas, but their pizzas were really nice.
Zubaydah was very attractive. I took quite a shine to her. She'd just got this aura about her which sort of drew you in with her smile.
Nizam was very talkative. We had quite a few conversations with him. They seemed a very nice couple, very pleasant.
Nizam and Zubaydah are also proud members of the local Afghan community. They have 2 young children, one 6, the other just 4 years old.
She went about her daily life as best she could, loved her kids. They were the centre of her world.
She was a devoted mother, and the family life was everything for her.
But life in Talbot Road is about to change forever.
Hello, police. Nizam contacted West Mercia Police to report Zubaydah missing.
At the time, Nizam said that his wife had gone out for a run and never returned.
Nizam also reveals something else to police.
There were a number of texts on his phone that reported to have come from Zubaydah. One which said something along the lines of, I love someone else, I want to pass my time with them. Zubaydah had left him and she had told him via text that she was going back to Afghanistan. She couldn't cope in the UK, didn't want to remain here, and of course had mentioned another man in her life.
Nizam had shown the texts to a friend at his mosque.
The gentleman concerned told Nizam that he should call the police and let them know that Zubaydah was missing, which of course he did.
But leaving her children behind seems at odds with devoted mother Zubaydah. Police launch a missing person inquiry.
Missing persons reports are taken very seriously, particularly when they are out of character. That inquiry would have been passed to a response officer via a patrol sergeant, and there are a template of inquiries that would have taken place in response to trying to find out where Zubaydah was.
The police will investigate places known to Zubaydah Salangi. So, for example, they would go to addresses that they know that she would go to. They would speak to people that she is associated with, just to see whether or not there is any information whatsoever that can help them locate Zubaydah.
There would also have been the local inquiries being conducted, house-to-house inquiries. Are there any footprints where they would normally be or not?
Investigators focus on Zubaydah's street, where she was reportedly last seen, going for a run.
When she was first reported missing, we were at home because we had a knock on the door from the police asking if we had seen her. The police asked us if we had any dashcam footage of their house. The police have took our SD card from the car, and obviously there was no footage on there. But apart from that, I found it to be a bit strange that she went missing. It was just very strange.
The police shortly after did put out a press release to the media saying, could we report that she was missing and if anybody had information about it, and it was front page news in Bromsgrove. I wrote articles on it at the time. She was a young mother of 2 and somebody who was well known in the area, and it seemed a surprise that she would suddenly disappear. It didn't seem to make sense, and a lot of people were interested in it and worried about her as well.
I was going through social media. It said that Zubaida had gone missing on the Sunday. The neck hairs stood up. In my heart, I knew something terrible had happened. I commented on that post, a lovely woman, I hope she's found safe.
The reasons behind it just don't seem clear. It seemed like a bit of a mystery for the area, and especially as a lot of people had only seen her a few days before serving up pizzas in the takeaway.
There was no trace of Zubaida anywhere, of course, apart from the text messages.
Detectives start investigating Zubaida's links overseas.
Zubaida Salangi was an Afghan national, and she was one of 8 children who lived in the Hindu Kush region, mountains just outside of Kabul.
So Zubaida was born in 1991 in Afghanistan. She was raised there with her extended family, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, obviously her parents. She qualified as a maths teacher and actually worked in a school in Afghanistan.
And she was a highly educated woman and had aspirations.
Zubaida came to the UK as a result of her marriage to Nizam Salangi. That was an arranged traditional marriage between the families. And Zubaida came to the UK to be with Nizam in around 2013.
She carried on wanting to learn, and she was going to evening classes to do English at college.
She had a really strong work ethic, not only from working at Prego Pizza, but her desire and drive to help other people in terms of education. And it was ultimately to be her dream that she would work in the education system in the United Kingdom.
Investigators are puzzled. Inquiries reveal Zubaida making a go of life in Britain. But her missing persons report suggests she's not happy with her life here.
And straight away, when you get a missing person inquiry like that, where it is totally out of character, that raises red flags. You just get that feeling that something is just not right.
Police start to scour the family home.
A search of the property would be conducted with the consent of the owner. That is standard in missing person inquiries. Checking loft spaces, etc., just to make sure that that individual isn't actually where they should be at home.
Nizam Salangi took police to show her wardrobe and an 8-inch gap in her clothes rail where she had taken clothing and left.
And there were 2 handwritten notes to the children explaining why she's left.
Police officers attended Prego Pizza and they searched the rear of the premises.
It was searched by a pulsar team, which is a number of officers who are specifically trained. They're licensed search officers. One of their major skills is searching, detailed searching, leave no void unexplored.
They searched, in particular, a storage area where there were many boxes.
In the rear storeroom, concealed on a shelf, which could only be accessed via stepladders, we found a purse which had been secreted behind a load of pizza packing boxes. That was Zubaida's purse. In that purse was her driving licence, some photographs of her children, and some cash.
It was something they felt that she wouldn't have left behind if she'd actually run off with somebody else.
In that same area, in a cavity within the wall space, was an iPhone box, a mobile phone box, wrapped in bubble wrap. And in there was a phone that subsequently transpired to be used by Zubaida to contact her family in Afghanistan.
That was a real pivotal moment for the police investigation.
It became quite obvious that something was severely wrong.
In Bromsgrove, mother of 2, Zubaida Salangi, has been missing for nearly a week. As investigators continue searching the takeaway business she runs with her husband Nizam, word spreads across the local community.
I actually took it upon myself to drive past Prego Pizza because I'd been so upset I didn't know what had happened, and I saw forensic vans, people in white suits carrying trays from Prego Pizza and putting them into the van. At that point, I think I knew that something is wrong.
Investigators start analysing their discoveries at the premises, Zubaida's phone and her driving licence.
It's a very significant find because Zubaida wasn't yet in possession of a British passport, so her driving licence would have been absolutely key for her as a form of identification. And of course, if she was going to leave, why would she leave images of her children who were very dear to her, as you would expect, at home and not take them with her? And then of course, her one means of contacting her family, that phone, was massively significant because that was her only support network, her contact with her family in Afghanistan.
By now, police have also spoken to Zubaida's family overseas.
It's very clear that she was someone who was very loved indeed by her family. Such was that love that they would regularly contact each other every single day.
Officers made contact with Mr. Valzadar, Zubaida's father, in Afghanistan, and it became apparent that he'd not heard from his daughter since the 27th of March.
And that was really unusual because she was so family orientated. So if Zubaida was planning to leave the country and go home, then her family would have been the first people that she'd contacted, and they would know that she was on her way. So the fact that they hadn't heard from her was really distressing.
The police would have understandably been very concerned at this stage because, having been shown by Nizam Salangi part of her wardrobe missing, text messages purportedly from her indicating that she had left him and the family. But in fact, having searched Prego Pizza, they discovered something completely different. So suspicions quickly turned on Nizam Salangi.
People in the local community are also questioning Nazim's claims.
It was common knowledge that Nizam had said she'd gone out for a jog on the Sunday and not come back.
Thought there's no way she would have been out jogging. No way. Because we never seen her apart from school runs, going to work, coming back from work. That's the only time I would see her. Definitely not for a jog.
Who goes out for a jog, leaving your children? Personally, myself, I never left my children in that situation. So that did not ring true at all.
On social media, there were a lot of questions. I think there was a lot of disbelief that she would have actually left the country. She seemed that she was quite settled here and she had a family, and it didn't seem to make sense.
Detectives soon discover something sinister about the seemingly happy couple.
For customers at the pizza parlour, they'd just see the couple behind the counter who were friendly and chatty, and it seemed like a normal marriage. A few people who got closer to them did comment that there were signs that maybe things behind closed doors weren't so happy.
I'd always try and make conversation, try and get Zubaida to sort of look at me, you know. She was a very shy person, but I think as I came to know them as a couple, there were a few red flags that I picked up on during my visits there. I noticed every time I spoke to Zubaida, Nizam would stop what he was doing and turn his head, and she would sort of crumble, go very quiet, look away, and not acknowledge that I was there. And she would sort of like fade into the background. I had feeling that she wanted to communicate more, but felt she couldn't. And I'd commented to my husband a few times that I felt he was controlling her. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I ended up fleeing to a women's refuge. And one of the things they teach you there is how to recognise a manipulator.
It was a relationship that was plagued with lots of troubles. She would regularly argue with Nizam.
I don't think it was a happy marriage. I sensed that Zubaydah felt extremely trapped by the culture that she'd married into, trapped by the fact that she loved her kids and would do anything for them and would not leave for that reason. There was clearly some abuse, which was reflected in numerous phone calls between Zubaydah and her family back in Afghanistan. She would contact them regularly. Her family would tell us that she would often speak of her unhappiness and her physical and emotional abuse within her marriage at the hands of Nizam.
Zubaydah's friend Samantha confirms investigators' worst fears.
I told them I'd noticed a few red flags. The next thing, they asked me if they could come and take a statement from me, which they did do. And I said, one time I went in with my husband and I looked at Zubaydah as I was stood waiting, and I noticed that she got a black eye. It looked like she'd covered it up with some foundation. It was purple and black, and I spoke to her. I asked her what she had done. All the time Nizam was glaring at her and said basically she'd banged it on the cooker hood. I didn't believe her immediately. I did not believe her. I was talking to my husband as we left the shop, and I said, I believe he's done that. I think he's going to end up killing her.
As the inquiry moved on, his willingness to assist began to dwindle, which also, of course, arose suspicions with the investigating officers.
Part of the investigation process by the police into this missing persons inquiry involved them looking at bank accounts, and they discovered that there had been transactions on one of her accounts in various locations.
Detectives spot transactions made after Zubaydah reportedly went missing.
These were cash withdrawals in Birmingham. So, of course, CCTV inquiries are conducted at those cash points to see if we can establish who is withdrawing that cash.
And when they viewed that CCTV footage, they saw a figure who they believed to be Nizam Salangi. Understandably, the police would have been very suspicious of this, given what Nizam Salangi had previously told them, that she had run away with another man and wasn't coming back.
More significantly, an analysis of the phone data showed that the texts purportedly sent by Zubaydah from her phone to Nizam's phone were actually sent whilst her phone was in Bromsgrove.
This obviously led the police to be very suspicious indeed, and ultimately showed Nizam to be lying about Zubaydah having left the area.
We could tell from the location of Zubaydah's phone and the location of Nizam's phone at the time the text messages were sent that they were actually co-locating, and the phones were moving round together. So it couldn't have been Zubaydah who was sending those texts.
The police quickly concluded that Nizam Salangi had himself sent these messages using her mobile phone to message his phone.
He had actually been sending these texts to himself, pretending to be his wife.
It was clear that Nizam was fabricating a series of events to try and show some proof that Zubaydah was conducting her daily business, i.e. sending text messages, withdrawing money from the bank. We've got significant fines at Prego Pizza, the phone, the purse, and his unwillingness to cooperate with inquiries is amazingly suspicious and absolutely tipped the balance into something far more sinister or potentially likely a homicide.
With all this information, the police made the decision, and quite rightly, that a missing persons inquiry quickly became into a murder inquiry. And they attended Nizam's address on Talbot Road and arrested him on suspicion of murder.
In Bromsgrove, takeaway owner Nezam Salangi is in custody on suspicion of murdering his wife and mother of two, Zubaydah.
We learned that he'd been arrested, which was completely, massive shock.
At this point, we've gone from a missing person report to suspected murder, and that's huge in terms of how the community felt, but also what was being reported in the media. Murders were very rare in Bromsgrove, and it sent real shockwaves through the community.
From that day on, really, the whole street was swarmed with police cars, police vans, a massive tow truck to remove the cars.
It was headline news for us at the newspaper, and everyone wanted to know more about what could have led to this.
Most of the kind of like gossip that was going round was that they believed that Nizam had done something to her. And I think that just goes to show how many people kind of like had a feeling something was going on, like domestic abuse. Didn't want to voice their opinions. I thought horrendous thoughts that he had killed her, and thoughts as to what I could have done differently. Was there anybody I could have gone and told?
Once you've decided to make an arrest, straight away, the clock is ticking in respect of your ability and the time you have to deal with that individual you've got in custody. There's a lot of pressure on an SIO and their team to make ground as fast and as best as they can.
Investigators seize their suspect's mobile. What they find on it confirms what the family have told them.
Nizam had captured a video on his mobile phone. There'd clearly been a domestic argument on the 27th of March. The children were present in the house. It was clearly very emotional. They were arguing in Afghan.
In that argument, Zubaydah was holding a kitchen knife to her wrist in what was plainly a complete act of desperation. She was, by this stage, terribly unhappy in the relationship that she was in.
And threatening to self-harm, and locks herself in the bathroom. During it, she yells at him that he'd destroyed her life for the last 8 years, which is how long they'd been married.
And basically saying to him, you carry on filming, you know, you've made me so unhappy. And of course, Nizam was keen for people to see that.
Under questioning, Nezam maintains his story, that his wife has fled their marital home.
I think Nizam was keen that video represented that Zubaydah was suffering from some kind of mental health episode or was very desperate, and therefore the fact that she may have gone missing may have come as no surprise.
But analysts find even more interesting activity on Nezam's phone, recorded the day after their violent argument.
On the 28th of March, Nizam, his brother Ramin and his brother Yazin all commenced using 3 new phone numbers that had not previously been used before, which in itself is suspicious. 28th of March is the last time that anybody had ever seen or heard from Zubaydah, and she was never to be seen again.
One of the phones had only been activated for 48 hours and seemed to be a burner phone, and it raised suspicions over why somebody would do that at the same time that Zubaydah went missing.
Detectives now focus on Nezam's brothers and their movements that day.
Rahman and Yasin Salangi lived in Cardiff, but they worked in Caerphilly in a pizza takeaway. The police investigation turned to the pizza takeaway in Caerphilly, and that included examining the CCTV footage of what had been going on in the takeaway. That showed unusual and suspicious behaviour between Rahman and Yasin, both on mobile telephones, on the 28th of March.
Investigators trace calls being made to their brother Nezim, but this is the first time they have spoken to him all year.
CCTV footage revealed that shortly after 10 p.m, Yasin Salangi was seen to reach underneath a counter and retrieve a mobile phone that he handed to Rahman.
And as a result of that phone data inquiries, we could see that on the night of the 28th of March, Rahman actually travelled up from Newport and came to Bromsgrove and met with Nizam.
During questioning, Nezim comes up with an explanation.
He told the police that the reason why Rahman had come from Caerphilly down to Bromsgrove was because a part of the oven in Prego Pizza had broken, and that he had requested his brother to come down with a particular part to replace in the broken oven. In fact, there was nothing wrong with the oven whatsoever. So the police attention turned to Nizam Salangi to see exactly what he had been doing that day.
The 28th of March is really significant because we know on that day that Nizam was expecting a gent to come to the pizza shop. He actually contacted that gent and said, "Don't bother coming, I'm not opening the pizza shop," and gave an excuse along the lines of something was wrong with one of the pizza ovens and therefore business was not going to be conducted as usual. And of course that gent never came.
The police also spoke to one of the chefs who worked at Prego Pizza, and they established from him that in fact Nizam Salangi had cancelled the chef for that day.
Police uncover something else rather sinister about the 28th of March.
Part of the police inquiry revealed that a tenant who had been living up above in a flat in Prego Pizza had been contacted by Nizam Salangi.
We actually traced that individual, and he confirms that Nizam actually called him on the 28th to see when he was coming back into the country. And again, this was really suspicious, taken together with the cancellation of the gent coming up on that day. He clearly wanted no one around to interfere with what he had to do.
Police now suspect this was the day Zubaydah was killed. And Rahman was called upon that evening to help his brother Nezim dispose of the body.
It was key to the investigation to know where Nizam and Rahman have gone during these hours where they're together in and around Bromsgrove. Crucial to those inquiries are CCTV. We knew they were in a white Nissan vehicle. Although you couldn't see the registration number of that vehicle, a similar vehicle was captured on numerous pieces of CCTV from various locations. And it basically showed that vehicle travelling out of Bromsgrove towards an area called Lower Bentley. During the early hours of the morning, we were able to calculate that they were probably in or around the area of Lower Bentley for approximately 2.5 to 3 hours for the return journey into Bromsgrove. We had the phone that Nizam was carrying linking to the Wi-Fi at Prego Pizza, so we could time when they got back to that location. A short stop at Prego Pizza before going back out to Lower Bentley. Our hypothesis being that they've gone out to Lower Bentley, prepared an area for deposition disposal. They've come back into Bromsgrove, collected Zubaydah, gone back out to that area and disposed of her body.
But finding Zubaydah's body is a different story. Limited mobile coverage in rural Worcestershire makes it harder to track the suspect's phones.
You are entering a massively rural area. It's huge. Fields, farms, canals. all stretching along the side of the motorway. We were unable to pinpoint exactly where they'd been, so it became a priority to sectorise that vast area and methodically, day by day, put officers through that area on foot with dogs. Huge operation, massively time-consuming.
The police started searching the area. It was noticeable that they were looking out in the countryside, and that spread like wildfire, and people started to question whether actually she'd been buried somewhere.
There were about 20 police, 10 on either side of the lane, with long sticks, were sweeping through the side of the road, trying to see if there was anything in there in the hedges. And then the drones, when they came, were up in the opposite direction down there, and they were just searching in the fields all around.
It's really, really frustrating because you know that you are generally in the right area, but you just don't know where exactly you need to be.
Suddenly, there's a breakthrough.
Just off a road called Copy Holt Lane, search officers came across what looked like a grave-shaped marking in the ground in a copse. It was a secluded area of woodland next to a lake. It also looked as if it had been disguised with branches and leaves, and of course they were extremely suspicious.
Investigators seal off the scene.
They'd got a car across the road blocking it off and were putting up, police tape around the area. It was clearly some sort of a crime scene.
To find that grave in our area of interest was highly significant. That's what we were looking for.
The police excavated this area of ground by hand, and they dug down to a natural level of clay.
But unfortunately, his body wasn't found there.
At this stage, the police were understandably frustrated by the fact that Zubaydah Salangi's body had not been found, despite them having dug what they thought to be her grave. So the task for the police was made more difficult. But with great care and determination, they put together all the evidence that they had to be able to put before the Crown Prosecution Service and a decision be made to charge Nizam Salangi with murder.
You may have convinced the CPS, but you've got to convince a jury beyond all reasonable doubt that he is guilty of that murder.
Bromsgrove takeaway owner Nizam Salangi has been charged with the murder of his missing 28-year-old wife, Zubaydah. But police still haven't found a body.
Just because Nizam had been charged, in some regards, with a no-body murder, the job has only just started.
Investigators home in on the role of Nizam's brother, Ramin.
When Ramin Salangi was arrested and interviewed by police, he initially spun the same tale as his brother did. But when the police confronted him with all the evidence that they had gathered, it was then that he began to tell the police more information. Zubaydah was dead and that she had hung herself.
And they brought the body down from the flat above Prego Pizza and put it into the back of Nizam's car.
He indicated the purpose of the trips out to Lower Bentley was to dispose of her body.
That was a real breakthrough moment for the police, because at that point, Nizam hadn't said anything about what happened.
As a result of his admission, Ramin Salangi is charged with assisting an offender. But to make their case watertight, police need to find Zubaydah. In August 2020, DCI Mark Peters is brought in to head up the investigation.
My absolute objective was to find Zubaydah. I feel like she almost becomes part of your life. I had a photograph of her on my phone. I would have sleepless nights. Absolutely all-consuming, because we just did not know where she was, and it was totally frustrating. So I decided to go to one of the pre-trial hearings at Worcester Crown Court. And that's the first time I'd seen Nizam and Rami in the flesh. And I looked at them and I just thought, you two are anything but master criminals. And it just got me thinking, why would you go to the trouble of digging a grave, finding it not fit for purpose, then you'll fill that grave back in and go to the lengths they did to try and disguise it? So I canvassed a number of key individuals within the team. The opinion of the forensic archaeologist was that he was 98% sure from the crime scene photography that we were at the bottom of that grave from the first dig. And that 2% was just too much for me. I want to be 100% sure that we hadn't missed something at that location.
So the police went back and they decided to dig again at the exact spot they had before, at that makeshift grave.
And then went further, about 5 inches.
And lo and behold, having done so, the police found the body of Zubaydah Salangi.
It was such a relief. It was very, very emotional. And it's a day I will never, ever forget.
The news spreads throughout Zubaydah's hometown.
When they found her, although it was very emotional, I was glad that they'd found her for her family.
I just couldn't believe it. Shock, really. Just awful, absolutely awful.
I attended the post-mortem. Unfortunately, due to the passage of time that Zubaydah had remained in the grave, we were unable to establish an absolute cause of death. But we can establish very compelling evidence as to what had happened. She was wrapped in household bin bags. She was in a Primark duvet cover, which essentially formed a kind of sack tied with rope. The pillowcase of that duvet set had been located during a previous search at Talbot Road. Her feet were bound with a curtain wire, and when we went back to Talbot Road, there was one window at the front living room that had curtain wire that was absent.
This was a hugely significant find because obviously it gave a direct link from Zubaydah Salangi back to the home of Nazim.
The parting letters supposedly left by Zubaydah are also proven to be fakes.
We were able to prove, with the use of a handwriting expert, that in fact there is no way she could have written those letters.
This was a case that was filled with pieces of circumstantial evidence. And like a puzzle, those pieces in isolation didn't appear to be anything substantial. But when they were put together, it was very clear indeed to see the involvement of Nizam Salangi in the murder of Zubaydah.
"18 months after finding Zubaydah's body, her husband Nezim finally faces justice. He pleads not guilty to murder, and his brothers Ramin and Yasin plead not guilty to charges of assisting an offender.
I went to court and I testified. I felt like I had to be that voice for Zubaydah. Nizam had got his feet up. He didn't look bothered at all. He was just staring straight at me. I tried to avoid eye contact, but on the occasion that I looked at him, he was just smirking. And he didn't look regretful at all. The defence was quite gruelling. They tried to say that Zubaydah did in fact have a black eye, but that was years ago. And I said, no, it was 6 weeks before she went missing. So I just basically stood my ground. I had to be strong. I wanted to make sure she was not forgotten.
The prosecution reveals how the violent row captured on Nezim's smartphone the day before Zubaydah went missing was to be their last.
That night, after he went to the pizza parlour, that she went on Facebook and unfriended him and his brothers and was searching for cleaning jobs.
To stop his wife from leaving him, Nezim decides on murder.
During the court case, the web of lies that Nizam had put together was completely unravelled. The prosecution showed that a lot of what he'd said just wasn't true, and piece by piece, it showed that he was just a heartless killer.
After a 7-week trial, the jury retires.
When the guilty verdicts came in, it was a feeling of huge relief.
Upon being found guilty, he became very vocal towards the officers in the case, essentially alleging that we'd fabricated evidence to stitch him up.
I think he thought he was going to get away with it. I felt glad that he's got what he deserves.
Nezim Solangi is jailed for a minimum of 18 years. Ramin Solangi sentenced to 6 years, and his brother Yasin for 4 years and 9 months.
Of course, it's the verdict we wanted, but it doesn't bring Zubaydah back.
The murder has also left its mark on Bromsgrove.
Even now, there's still times when people think about it, especially going past there in that precinct. And just to think that they had a killer in their community.
If I could speak to Zubaydah now, I think I'd rather go back in the past. Said, look, come with me. I'll take you somewhere, anywhere away from him. Because then she'd still be here. But I hope she's out there somewhere and she knows that I've done something for her.
Three masked balaclavaed individuals barged in. They'd take a loaded 9mm handgun into a store. This thing was cocked and ready to go.
It was like walking into a nightmare.
Craig came straight from the side area, the living quarters at the store, and he rained a number of blows down on one of these individuals.
What happened next was absolute chaos.
The taller figure simply raised the gun and fired one shot. That was the one that penetrated straight into Craig's chest.
It was just mayhem and total mindless violence.
We are on a manhunt. Not only have they committed a homicide, but they are armed and dangerous and out there in the community.
Just 15 miles outside of Birmingham lies the quiet village of Fairfield.
The area itself is very quaint, very picturesque. Rolling hills, farmland. You know, you just get those farmland smells that drift into the village, you know. And I've known it for a long, long time because I've lived here for most of my life. Everybody does know everybody in Fairfield. People feel safe, and they should feel safe in a small village like this.
Yeah, it's a very close-knit community, and the Fairfield Post Office is at the heart of that community.
When I was a lad growing up, I'd walk to the shop, which was the post office in Fairfield, so it's got that feel, that family feel of the post office being in the village that everybody sort of gravitates towards, really, to get their local supplies.
In 2003, Judy and Ken Hodson Walker decided to move to Fairfield and take over the running of the post office with their son Craig.
It's a lovely village, beautiful village, one shop, one church, one school. The people support each other. It was an easy decision to buy the property and the business. We moved in on the Thursday. Then we went up to the local pub, which is the Swan, and we walked in, and the landlord and landlady said, "Welcome to Fairfield." And we just thought, oh, that's amazing, absolutely amazing, to go somewhere where nobody knows you, and they just say welcome. And it was just, from then on, we just gradually got to know people. You feel that you had your own little place in the world.
The post office in Fairfield was the hub of the local community. It's the centre. It's where you go for your pint of milk, your morning newspaper. So Ken and Judy and Craig were, you know, part of that. People saw them every day. And so they were kind of really at the heart of that community. People were very fond of them.
Friday, the 9th of January, the worst day of my life and my husband's life. We got up as normal, we did the newspapers, we went to get the milk in, and then I went to get changed.
From upstairs, Judy suddenly hears a scream coming from the shop.
Before I knew what was happening, Craig came out of his bedroom, ran down the hall, down the stairs, pushed past me, grabbed the bat.
He must have been woken up. And so he'd literally, I think, just left his warm bed as he heard this fracas downstairs. So he came downstairs just wearing simply white boxer shorts. So, yeah, you couldn't be more vulnerable. And obviously knew that somebody was attacking that store.
I ran down to the shop. There was these three perpetrators with masks, couldn't see their faces. There was a guy with a gun in his hand. There was two others, just being very vicious.
The scene that confronts Judy and Craig is horrifying. Ken is being attacked by the masked men who are demanding access to the post office safe.
It was like walking into a nightmare. The initial shock of seeing what was happening. And they were just there wanting the money, but there was no way because they had the timing wrong.
Unbeknown to the robbers, the safe is time-locked to open at 9 a.m.
The gang's attempts to get the post office cash are thwarted, and the violence they are raining down on the family is escalating.
It was just mayhem, chaos, and total mindless violence.
In a desperate attempt to protect his mother and father, Craig lunges at their attackers with the cricket bat.
Craig came straight from the side area, the living quarters of the store, and he rained a number of blows down on one of these individuals, straight across the upper shoulder and across the hand.
And so Craig could see that he was really hurting his dad. Ken was trying to fight back. What happened next was absolute chaos.
It was the taller figure who turned his attention as Craig backed down an aisle. He simply raised the gun and fired one shot. That was the one that penetrated straight into Craig's chest. and that immediately caused him to fall.
Judy then goes to his aid, and then the robbers continue trying to get the money out of the safe. Ken is trying to confront the robbers to fend them off.
Craig's mum comes in and uses some sort of pole to also rain blows on them, so literally defending her family.
Then the tall gunman fires at Ken and he's shot through the leg.
So he was taken out and taken down, and it hit his lower leg, and then he fell, and then the racking fell on top of him. But these people didn't stop there. They continued to jump on that racking, causing further harm. They were intent on causing him harm and injury. But meanwhile, one of them was still jumping on the counter, trying to break into the cash register using the sledgehammer. But clearly, a minute and a half, roughly speaking, had passed. And clearly they thought, if we stay here any longer, we're going to be caught and we're going to be trapped in here. And they just simply fled.
And I went over to Ken, and he was on the floor with his injured leg. And then I went to Craig, and he looked at me and he said, he's gone. Craig had said to his dad, the last word he ever said is, they've got me.
Judy knows there is little she can do to help Craig, but Ken is bleeding heavily, and she has no way of knowing if the masked raiders will return.
I grabbed the phone, tried to phone the police. The next thing, there was armed police officers around, and they said, come away, but I didn't want to come away. And Ken was on the floor, Craig was on the floor, and I was sat down on the floor by the fridge, not knowing what on earth to do. And after that, the ambulance came, and all within 2 minutes, everything, your whole life has changed. And it was just one of those moments that you will never forget. I need to stop now. 2 seconds. Oh.
The residents of Fairfield are waking up to the horrific news that there has been a fatal shooting at their village post office.
This kind of violence descended on them and left in its wake an utterly tragic scene for them to deal with.
Judy's son Craig has been shot and killed by a gang of masked gunmen. Her husband Ken has been rushed into surgery, having taken a bullet to the leg.
I was numb with shock. Your brain shuts down, and I think it's a way of your self-preservation, that you can continue, but you don't know how you're continuing.
One of the things that stood out from that straight away was this poignant image of a son absolutely prepared to do anything that he could to protect his parents.
Craig was happy and he was caring, put family above everybody else. And when he made you a friend for life. And he was very loyal. He had such a chuckle. When he found something funny, he just made you laugh because he just made you sort of chuckle so much. The Christmas before everything happened, Craig and his partner decided that they would get engaged, and they were both very happy about it. And hopefully she would have moved up and help us run the business. The two of them were just getting on so well together, and in all, it was like we were going to start a new chapter in life with two lots of people running the business. Our lives are completely changed on that day, and will always be changed from that day.
Detective Superintendent John Marsden is one of the first officers to hear about the shooting.
We're talking about an armed robbery that had taken place at Fairfield Post Office, which of course immediately triggered me because I knew it. And I knew then I would do everything I could to make sure we caught the killers involved. So when the officers had turned up, what they found was obviously a mother distraught.
Judy immediately tried to give Craig mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and when paramedics arrived, they tried their best, but he was dead at the scene.
With officers now on the scene, the investigation progresses at speed.
Very quickly, it became apparent that the whole incident had been captured on the CCTV.
That CCTV was absolutely phenomenal for us.
Scrutiny of the CCTV immediately reveals significant details to detectives.
And roughly about 8:23, masked balaclavaed individuals barged in. Camo fatigues, dark-coloured sportswear, gloves on.
Their clothing suggests the gang may be forensically aware.
And you've got a witness, and that witness just freezes, trying to be as small as she can be and be as inconspicuous as she can be. She did exactly the right thing.
The shouting must have raised the alarm with Craig, who came straight from the living quarters of the store, brandishing a cricket bat. And he rained a number of blows down on these individuals. Then it was the taller figure who turned his attention. As Craig backed down an aisle, he simply raised the gun and fired one shot.
You can also clearly see on the CCTV footage the smaller offender grab the tall man with the firearm and direct him towards shooting Ken.
What's in your mind for you to be grabbing the gunman's arm and dragging it towards a defenceless older person who literally has just seen his son being shot? Meanwhile, one of them was trying to break into the cash register using the sledgehammer. The cash register literally had coins, no more than a few coins in there. And if they walked away with £1, that's all they walked away with. And the carnage that was left as a consequence doesn't bear thinking about.
With their faces covered, police are unable to immediately identify the men. But then, there is a breakthrough when search teams recover one of the weapons used in the raid, not far from the post office.
There was a sledgehammer that had been discarded. Orange handle, very distinctive.
You've got several opportunities with that. One is fingerprints, but the other is also DNA, bearing in mind how hard you have to grip a sledgehammer. So if we could find DNA which belongs to one of the suspects, you've got a huge link.
Detectives then hear that witnesses have seen the gang's getaway vehicle abandoned just a few streets away from the post office.
We know that they got into a silver-coloured Volkswagen Golf. It was on false registration plates.
Crooks think that they've got it sorted, right? They've tried to mask the identity of that particular car.
One of the key aspects from the vehicles were the number plates. So we removed those from the vehicle, and they were sent away for forensic analysis.
Detectives quickly uncover the origin of the getaway car.
That Golf had actually been stolen on New Year's Eve from a car key burglary in the Solihull area of Birmingham.
Another terrible attack on an innocent couple. The female was in the house having a shower. I think the husband had gone out to get some supplies, and as soon as he literally turns back up on the drive and enters the house, they barge in and they confront him with this meat cleaver and say, "We want the keys."
The description that the victims in the carjacking gave us was of two guys who were probably of below average height, and you know that from the CCTV in the post office that you're looking at two guys who are actually, again, below average height. You're actually potentially looking at the same suspects.
Further potential forensic evidence is discovered in the Golf in the form of a footwear impression.
People always sort of talk about footwear patterns and identifying things by footwear patterns. But it's not the pattern itself that identifies you, it's things like the wear on it, the size, anything like that. So actually what you're looking for on the soles is damage. We all wear our shoes in different ways, we all walk in different ways, so you'll get wear patterns.
Detectives hope that once they have an offender in custody, they will be able to match the distinctive wear patterns to his shoes. And police have a theory too about the gang's decision to dump the vehicle.
We know it's unlikely that they've abandoned it and then run into a house. The most likely outcome is that they've gone into another vehicle. If we can put those two vehicles together at any time, then that is key evidence.
Knowing the forensic evidence in this case will be crucial, CSI examined the post office CCTV frame by frame.
So when you see the cricket bat connect with one of the suspects, you're immediately thinking, injuries, are there injuries consistent with the bat that will appear on the suspect? You see one of the offenders jump over the counter of the post office. He's put his foot down on that counter. So therefore, we've got the opportunity on that counter for shoe prints. It's not something that's going to be contaminated by everybody coming in and out of the post office, because we know that nobody else jumped over the counter. We found a great foot impression on the counter. And then we were slightly puzzled because it was actually a size 5 shoe.
Now that is very, very unusual in an adult male.
You've got an offender who, from the CCTV, is apparently male, but has got very, very small feet. And this is a really unusual aspect and something that potentially is really, really good evidence.
As officers search for the gang, CSI turn their attention to the handgun used to kill Craig Hodson Walker.
And we're looking for the casings, because obviously we're also looking for the weapon, because the markings on bullet casings are unique to the gun that's fired them.
When the recovered bullets and casings are sent for analysis, the information returned to the investigation team about the gun they have come from is chilling.
It's been quite notorious. It's called gun number 6, and it was linked to murders and to armed robberies.
And they're able to match those bullets and bullet casings to a 9mm handgun that it turns out has actually been used in 11 crimes previously.
What you get in the criminal fraternity is that you get pool guns, and there is an armourer, and criminals will go to him and request a weapon for an offence that they're going to commit.
So the way that the tall gunman, raised his hands coldly and shot Craig at point-blank range tells me that it's very cold, very callous. You could see that they were criminals that were used to handling firearms and had no concern whatsoever for taking a human life.
The attackers of this post office were highly unlikely to be locals. They would almost certainly have come out to Fairfield from an urban area.
It's fairly likely that a gang like this have come out of Birmingham, given the geography.
Pressure is mounting on police to stop this violent crime gang.
The thing you've got to worry about is the psyche of these people that have shot one person, tried to shoot another, and they could do it again. What was the next target going to be? These people would stop at nothing if left unchecked.
We are on a manhunt. We need to track down these offenders as quickly as possible because they are armed and dangerous and out there in the community.
Police in Fairfield are on a manhunt to track down the masked gunmen who have shot and killed 29-year-old Craig Hodson Walker as he tried to protect his parents.
And I still don't understand why there was so much violence. And I still don't understand why people think life is not important. Because I would have given them money if I could have, you know, instead of Craig losing his life. When he was little, he was very shy, very afraid to answer, even to go and ask for another shoe if you went to a shoe shop. He loved computers and he was really clever. And he loved Christmas, absolutely adored Christmas. He would always think about what people would want as a Christmas present, not just get anything but really think about it. He didn't suffer fools gladly. He would stand by his convictions. He used to say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not right. He did have flaws, as we all do, but he was a wonderful person.
Police know the gang fled the scene in a stolen VW Golf. Reports now come in that having dumped that vehicle, they made off in a Ford Mondeo.
That they then made their way back to the Birmingham area in that car.
Witnesses are going to tell the police they've left in a Golf, and that's what the police are going to look for. Well, of course, they knew that. Therefore, they had tatty-looking white Mondeo, old car, P-registered, I think, something that was not going to stand out in some ways, certainly to any other witnesses.
Alarmingly, one of the vehicles has been seen in the area in the days running up to the robbery.
It's actually been spotted near various post offices in the days preceding the armed robbery at Fairfield. They've been out casing places, trying to find the best post office to hit.
And they were obviously looking for the post office, basically gave them the best chance of committing the offence without getting caught. They would maybe be looking for things like CCTV in the vicinity, escape routes, entrance routes, all that, where they could put a second vehicle that would not be particularly suspicious.
This was an attack that didn't happen out of the blue. It was clearly planned. It clearly had reconnaissance in the area.
Chillingly, the Hodson Walkers may already have come face to face with the men that killed Craig.
There was footage from that store where it showed that there had been some efforts to case the joint. They'd certainly looked at this particular premises before and been in that premises before.
Evidence is quickly mounting, but the identity of the armed robbers is still uncertain, so police appeal to the public for help.
Within the day, maybe slightly longer, we were starting to hear the names.
These crimes tend to resonate deeply with members of the public, and this was one where we had a huge number of calls into the incident room trying to provide us with information, and this really did progress at speed. We got lots of names coming into the inquiry.
What happened was that the same names kept popping up, so obviously you've got to take that seriously, so you then start looking at these people.
We begin to focus on 4 particular individuals. These have come from inquiries and intelligence developments within the incident room.
The names that keep cropping up to the police are Anselm Ribera, who is believed to be the taller gunman, brothers Declan and Christopher Morrissey, the 2 shorter men, and then a 4th man called Adrian Snape, who is thought to be the getaway driver.
Once we have names of suspects, you then go back to the CCTV.
Do they match the description of our offenders? How they walk, how they present themselves, their height, their build.
Obviously, we know now that we've got height discrepancies. We've got a tall suspect and 2 shorter suspects, and the names that we've been given basically match the description of the suspects in the post office. When we confirmed the identities of the suspects, they were very, very well known, both in West Mercia and in West Midlands.
So, names of Anselm Ribera, Declan Morrissey, Christopher Morrissey, obviously brothers, and Adrian Snape were the 4. And they had been involved in a number of incidents over the preceding years.
Violent burglaries, car key burglaries, robberies, and in fact, I recall that Anselm Ribera had been released from a sentence for armed robbery and had served 6 years of that sentence. So we knew that he had form for similar type offending.
I think they liked to live this lifestyle which pervaded the fact that it was almost boom and bust. Do a robbery, get some money, enjoy yourselves, you know, go and drink, go and take drugs. And it was chaotic in that respect. But certainly robberies, post offices in particular, I think seem to be their easy target.
As police piece together profiles of the 4 suspects, concerning patterns in their offending begin to emerge.
They were committing these robberies, but they hadn't enforced in the way that they did at Fairfield. This was a step up on their escalation, the desperation probably to where they were going. So left unchecked, they would have continued to cause massive carnage.
Obviously, having got the names of suspects that we're putting at the top of our priority list, what we're also looking for is evidence of association between those individuals. Do they know each other?
You look for CCTV on the day or on the preceding days to look for association between them. You have to establish that these guys knew one another and that they were associating with one another in the days leading up to the robbery. Because the whole point that you're trying to make is that you are talking about a criminal conspiracy here. We actually had CCTV from the premises where Ribera lived, and it actually showed the Morrisseys coming and going to and from Ribera's apartment.
And you could see that. It was almost like a gang forming together at certain times of the day, that as soon as you saw one come out the lift, you'd see the next one emerge, and then the next one, and you'd wait for the fourth one to come, and you'd go, OK, there you are. That's our four. That confident we were that we got the right four, they were working as a gang together.
So now we know that actually these people knew one another, they were associating with one another in the days prior to the robbery.
One of the witness appeals actually turns up some really helpful evidence.
So witnesses saw a number of males walking through a field, walking with bags, black bin bags and a holdall. We've got another witness who sees some burning in that area.
This guy had seen two people, and I believe part of his description, he described the disparity in height for the two people that were burning these items.
We examine the scene and recover a burnt phone and burnt trainers. And obviously we know that other clothing has been burnt, but it's been burnt beyond recognition. But we can recover evidence from the trainers and the phone.
That's the sort of information that is absolutely invaluable.
Again, when you start to find those burn site remnants of shoes that were left half burnt, you go back to the supplier, you go back to the likes of Nike or Adidas and you say, do you recognise this shoe impression? And they were able to tell us exactly what make that was, what model brand that was.
You've got this link, you know, because we know that we've got certain footmarks in the post office. We've got the mark on the counter. We've got marks in the car, and then we find this pair of shoes, and it's like a sort of, you know, a hallelujah moment.
The shoe and footwear prints all appear to belong to a single man. And so, with evidence mounting, police launch a dawn raid to arrest all four suspects.
You can't arrest one and then allow for the fact that the others might hear that that's happened. So it's a coordinated approach where you can arrest all four at the same time before they can be warned.
Thursday, the 15th of January, only a handful of days post-event, unified strike, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we go to the homes of Christopher Morrissey, Declan Morrissey, Adrian Snape, and Anselm Ribera. All of them arrested pretty much at home in their beds, and you can sort of imagine, can't you, with the fact that a firearm had been used, you can sort of imagine the wake-up call that they got, which is going to be quite surprising, with torches in your eyes and guns pointing at your head, and that's pretty much how it happened. And we take them into custody for the murder of Craig Hodson Walker. And that's only the start of the job. People think when you've made an arrest, the job's done. Far from it. There's lots of work to do to make sure that we could charge them at the end of the day. We know we've only got initially 24 hours to work with people in custody, and at that point, we didn't have lots of evidence to charge.
They can only hold them for a certain amount of time before they have to either release them or charge them. So the race is really on.
It has been less than a week since the armed robbery in Fairfield that saw Craig Hodson Walker gunned down as his horrified parents watched on. Police have 4 suspects in custody.
Ken was in hospital. I did not know how to deal with every minute of every day. And Craig pictures of him were being shown on the TV, which completely floored me every time I saw them.
Without sufficient evidence, police will be forced to release the Morrissey brothers, Anselm Ribera and Adrian Snape, the men they believe killed Craig in cold blood.
At that point, forensic evidence was going to be difficult. There was still lots of things being gathered, lots of things being processed, and lots of things being fast-tracked.
And then the forensic results come in.
There's a partial print that comes back from the sledgehammer, and that actually matches the fingerprint of one of the two brothers.
Forensics gathered from the fake license plate on the getaway vehicle also pays dividends.
We actually found fingerprints on the back of those plates, and we were able to match those fingerprints to the suspects.
The Morrissey brothers, Ribera and Snape, are formally charged with the murder of Craig Hodson Walker.
The case went to Crown Court, where all four men pleaded not guilty.
For Craig's parents, Judy and Ken, attending court is a harrowing experience.
I found it horrendous to think we were so close to the perpetrators.
The family are immensely strong, showed the solidarity. You got Ken that had been terribly injured and was in hospital for some considerable time, actually, post the event. But they were there, and they were there every single day.
As the offenders stand in the dock, it is immediately apparent that the height disparity between the 6'2" Ribera and the diminutive Morrissey brothers reflects the stature of the three men in the post office CCTV. But that's not all.
We videoed Anselm Ribera because he had a very distinctive way of walking. And so we were able, using a comparison between the video from the scene and the video that we had from him in custody, we were able to compare the two and confirm that they matched one another.
And it's not only Anselm Ribera's unusual gait that incriminates him.
It was apparent that the gunman, even through his balaclava, had a very, very distinctive nose. And again, we did comparisons with the CCTV, and again, we were able to conclude that it was more likely than not that the gunman was Anselm Ribera.
The day that Ribera gave his evidence, he walked past us, and I think I froze. I knew, even with the mask on, I knew by the shape of his nose, I just knew it was him.
The prosecution then turns its attention to the Morrissey brothers.
We see one of the suspects in the CCTV footage vaulting the counter at the post office. The footprint on the counter was a size 5, which is incredibly small, and there was a very, very small percentage of the adult male population that would have size 5 feet. When we went to the burn site, we found size 5 shoes in the bonfire. We found size 5 footprints in the Gulf. Declan Morrissey had size 5 feet. This was huge because the chances of it being somebody else with such a distinctive physical characteristic were very, very, very small.
The shoe was not the only evidence recovered from the bonfire.
Once we recovered the phones from the burn site, they were sent off for forensic analysis. One of the pieces of information that we retrieved allowed us to identify where the phone had actually been purchased in the days leading up to Craig's murder. And from that, we managed to obtain CCTV of Anselm Ribera, the gunman, actually in the shop where the phone and the SIM card were purchased.
And that's not the only CCTV evidence the prosecution is able to present in connection with the burn site.
There's a newsagents nearby that does have CCTV, and on that they find footage of what appears to be one of the suspects. He is clearly hiding his hand, which leads them to suspect that it's the person who had been hit with the cricket bat in the Fairfield post office. He is buying matches, which also suggests that he's buying those so he can then set alight to the evidence at the burn site.
The man in the newsagents is identified as Declan Morrissey.
Craig, in defending his parents, had hit the robbers, and sure enough, Declan Morrissey had injuries to his hand.
We had the cricket bat, and you can actually marry up the bat with the injuries so that you can say that those injuries were inflicted by that weapon. Because we knew that Declan Morrissey had injuries, we thought he might have sought treatment for it. And we asked to view the CCTV in all of the local hospitals. And lo and behold, on the CCTV from Solihull Hospital, we see Declan Morrissey sitting in the waiting room, and it actually turned out that he had gone there to seek treatment for an injury to his hand.
Despite the compelling evidence being produced, the men accused of Craig's murder seem unfazed.
Denials throughout. They did have that air of invincibility about them. They sat behind their screen with the guards in the dock, sniggering, laughing and joking.
They appeared to have no shame, no remorse, no sense of guilt.
There were times when they would just smirk.
But the prosecution has evidence that will wipe the smirks from their faces. CCTV from the morning of January the 9th.
And one of the very important pieces of CCTV that we discovered was from a petrol station where we see all 4 suspects and both vehicles, the Golf and the Mondeo. So this actually puts them together on the day of the murder. So obviously it will take a lot of explaining as to why the 4 of them with 2 stolen vehicles were together on the morning of Craig's murder, close to where the post office was located.
The film was shown of Ribera getting petrol, and his mother was sat directly behind me, and I heard her say, "That's not my boy," and I turned to Ken and I said, "We both know it is."
But it is the gang themselves that deal the final blow in calls they made from prison.
So yeah, prison calls are recorded, and only in special circumstances can we use those in evidence. It's another criminal that they're speaking to on the phone, and they become loose. They're talking about what they've done, almost bragging about what they've done. They were talking about it very freely, and they're laughing about it, as if it doesn't mean anything, that they've caused this pain and anguish to people that ultimately led to the death of an individual. Just terrible.
These men were all acting together. They had gone in together, each knowing that they were armed and with the purpose of robbing the post office. So it was the classic joint enterprise.
So Declan and Christopher Morrissey are almost the masterminds. They've planned it, they steal the car, they're seen coming and going to Ribera's flat. Ribera pulled the trigger. They're all responsible.
After an 11-week trial, it is now down to the jury to decide.
Every officer that sits in a courtroom would lie to you if they don't have that feeling that something might horribly go wrong at the end of it. The jury was out for some time. It seemed like forever, which makes you think, oh my God, we may have failed.
We just held our breaths when we were waiting for the verdicts.
On the 16th of December 2009, the jury convicted Anselm Ribera, Declan Morrissey and Christopher Morrissey of the murder of Craig Hodson Walker. They also convicted all 3 men of the attempted murder of Craig's father, Ken, as well as charges of armed robbery. It becomes kind of harder to have the same argument of joint enterprise for Adrian Snape, the getaway driver.
Mr. Snape always denied that he had realised there was a gun and that there was going to be a killing. And so the jury acquitted him.
When Adrian Snape was cleared, it was quite a dramatic moment. He jumped up and shouted out loud, I told you, I effing told you. Snape was removed from the court by security, and some of the jurors were visibly upset by it.
In a final act of disrespect, all 4 offenders choose not to attend court for their sentencing.
So, cowardly is how I'd best describe it, cowardly. Happy to sneer for the weeks preceding that in the courtroom before conviction, but then couldn't face justice.
Regardless of their absence, the sentences are passed.
Anselm Ribera and both Morrissey brothers each received a life sentence with a minimum of 34 years.
Adrian Snape was found guilty of involvement in the armed robbery and was sentenced to 8 years imprisonment.
It didn't make any difference because on the 9th of January, that's when we started our life sentence.
But Craig's family do take some small comfort in the fact that he was instrumental in bringing his own killers to justice.
He actually installed the CCTV that captured the offence taking place, captured his own death, which provided the investigation team with some evidence. Also, in defending his parents, using the cricket bat, causing the injury to the wrists of the suspects, he played a vital role in actually securing convictions for the killers.
Till the day I die, I'll never forget the 9th of January 2009. It's imprinted, it's there, and no, our lives are completely changed on that day and will always be changed from that day. My family is depleted by one. I never hear his voice again. And I miss his little hugs and his little chuckles. I just miss him. If Craig was here right now, I'd just say, I love you. Don't need to say any more.